Okay, so in this video, we're going to set up our Unreal project. So you're going to want to download the Epic Games launcher and install Unreal Engine 5, whether that's 5.3.2 like I have or some other version of 5. Doesn't really matter, but as the UI should look the same, but I'm going to use 5.3.2. And then once you have that downloaded, you have that installed, and that will take some time. I'd say 30 to 60 minutes. We're going to go ahead and launch it. And once you launch it, you should be presented with this screen since we didn't choose a project to launch. And we're going to go down to Games, and we're going to do third person because we're going to use the third person template to set up our character. So I'm going to call this my night tutorial. I'm going to do blueprint, desktop maximum, and I will include starter content. And then we'll go ahead and hit create. And now that the engine is open, if we just go ahead and hit play, you can kind of see that we get a character, we can move around, and we can jump. So what I want to do at a minimum is get our character in, replace that this character with our character, and get the same behavior happening. Maybe at the very end, I'll upgrade this and do some even more custom stuff. So in Unreal, if you've never used it before, we're mostly going to be using the content browser here. I personally like to just dock this thing in the layout. So I will tend to do something like this, a little bit easier for me. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into the characters folder here, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this night. And then I like to organize my content such as though I have meshes, and then I'll have my textures and materials. So for meshes, we can just go into this import button up here. And from here, I can go into my folder and grab my SK Night. And let's make this a little bit bigger. For our settings, skeleton will be set to nothing, which will create a new skeleton for us. If we open up advanced, let's go ahead and set the import method for normals to import normals and tangents. That's what we exported. I'm going to turn off create physics assets. I'm going to turn off import meshes and bone hierarchy. And I usually do check these boxes up here, use T0 as ref pose. And then if I update the mesh at any point, I will also click this, which will say update reference pose. That way, if I change joint positions, this will make sure that reference pose is updated. And then down here, you'll see under material, we can say don't search for materials and don't create materials and don't import textures. Basically, I'm just going to do all that myself. And now that we have these settings locked in, let's go ahead and hit import. And we can just ignore this. It's just talking about how there is a name clash on the texture, but that's fine. And so we're going to get two assets. You're going to get a skeletal mesh and a skeleton. If you're not used to Unreal, or if you haven't used Unreal before, basically your skeleton you can think of as more of a glue that ties a mesh to animations. So a skeleton in Unreal is really just a list of bones and their bone names and their hierarchy, and not really the positions. The positions are defined by the mesh. Multiple meshes can be imported on one skeleton, and then animations are imported on skeleton. Therefore, any meshes that use the skeleton can also use the animations. There's more to it than that, but that's the simple, quick gist of these two assets. So for textures, let's go ahead and import those. So for me, these were in here. And honestly, I'm just going to grab them all because I don't know and hit open. It will automatically set some of these to the correct thing. So you'll see down here, there's a compression settings dialog. It says it sets a normal map. it can detect when things are normal maps and it will set them to normal maps. Some things like this, it just says it's default. We might want to set that to masks. We'll see. But that's it. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit save all so that everything we've done right now is saved. And now let's go ahead and create a material. So if we right click in here, we can select material. And I'm going to name this, name it m_character. This material is not going to be directly assigned to our mesh, but what it will do is serve as the foundation or the parent of the actual materials that we'll build. So if we look at our textures here, we have a diffuse, we have normal, and we have spec. However, I assume that this specular is more than just a specular texture. For example, if we just look at the red channel, that looks like it could be specular, or that could be specular. There's multiple masks compressed in each of these, so each one of these channels is having some information, so we'll have to just figure out which one's which, because unfortunately spec doesn't really tell us much. A lot of times you'll see, like if you look in the mannequins here, you'll tend to see that they'll name textures like MSR, metallic, specular, roughness. So that tells you exactly what the RGB channels do. Spec is not actually accurate here because it's clear that these textures are meant for more. But the point I'm trying to make is that we need at least those three things: diffuse, normal, and then whatever this is. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's open up this M character. So base colors are diffuse. What we can do here is search for texture sample parameter 2D. And we'll call this diffuse. So a parameter means that this can be a variable. So when we create instances of this material, which you'll see shortly, we'll have variables called diffuse in there that we can just slot this in. So that way we only have to go into this graph view on this main material, and then everything else will just be parameters we just plug in. We can do the same thing over here for normal. So we'll do texture parameter 2D. And then, like I said, we're going to have to figure out what exactly that spec texture is meant to be, because we have metallic, specular, and roughness. It's probably some of those. So let's do this. We'll do another texture parameter, and I'll just call it masks. And we're going to be guessing here for now, so we'll do red as metallic, green as roughness, and blue as specular. And we'll just see if that is true or not. And you can see if we select this, that down here in the details, we've got this sampler type set to color. Let's go ahead and set it to masks, because it will be, like I said, it will be those black and white grayscale masks. And this is going to error out because it has a texture currently plugged in that is not a mask. So let's go ahead over here to our textures. Let's open up this default here, and the compression set to default. We're going to set it to masks right here. And then I can go ahead and load that in, and you see that I got rid of that error. Okay, so for now, let's just do this. I think that will be enough. If we right click on our material, we can see create material instance. So I don't remember the sections that we had, but let's just call it MI for material instance, night, body. Let me see what sections we actually have. So you can see over here in the asset details, I'm actually going to move this over here, that we have body, hair, and cloth. The sim ones we can ignore for now. So let's focus on body. So MI night body, and here's our textures. You can go ahead and check these on, and then go over here and slot that in. And slot that in. That's it. So if we come back to our materials, MI night body, go over here to body. There's this little arrow here. Use selected asset from content browser. Just pop that in. Give it a second to compile, and you can see it show up. So I would say that probably some of our masks assignments were incorrect here, because this is looking pretty wild. So now that we have that done, let's actually go in here and just see if we can figure out what these different channels are supposed to be. So I'm going to move this over to the side so I can kind of see it. And I'm going to go over here. Okay, so let's see here. If we just do that and we hit save, you can see that that specular looks not correct at all. So let's now try the green channel. That looks less bad. I don't know where that seam is coming from. Let's also now try the blue channel, see if that looks any better. Nope. So green does look like it's specular. And let's try blue for roughness and red for metallic. Okay, that actually does look better. We are getting a nasty seam there on the mesh, but that could be coming from the normal map. It's still looking pretty bad. In the character material, we need to go over to the normal and set its sampler to be normal. That's what I forgot to do there. And again, it's going to complain because the texture it's using is not a normal texture. So let's do that. There we go. Yeah, so it was basically just using a normal map as not a normal map, so we were getting some pretty ugly looking stuff happening. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We can then go back to our materials, right click, and again, let's take a look and see what we have. We have hair and cloth. So we can right click on this, create material instance, MI night hair. I'm going to do one more, MI night cloth. Let's go ahead and open up the cloth. Oh, you know what? I think this uses the exact same textures as before. It's just that I had it separated. Oops, had it separated out so that we could do the cloth simulation. There we go. And then lastly, the hair. So I honestly, it might even be the same textures. I'm not actually sure. Kind of looks like it. You can see some Z fighting is happening here. One thing that we can do is, you can see here on the MI Night Hair, we have this material property overrides. We can go down here and and try turning on two-sided for the hair. Like we still have some of that Z fighting happening. Oh, I know why. It's because we have our meshes here. So there's our cloth one, and here's our hair one. That's what's fighting us. So for now, let's go down here. You'll see LOD0 sections. And what we can do is on section 3 and 4 for me, those are our sim meshes. I can right click and do disable. That will stop them from rendering. And now I can hit save all. So as a quick test, let's just drag our knight in the level so we can check it out. So everything is there. It's looking good. It's set up. So I think that will be it for this one. And in the next video, we'll start working on retargeting our animations from this character, the default mannequin, over to our knight character.